everybody, welcome to the last Transformative Teachers webinar of the year. Today we are joined by Lola Garay. Hello Lola, how are you?
Hello Lucy and everyone, how are you doing? I can see a lot of people from Spain as well in the webinar, so welcome.
Great, yeah. Okay, so we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, so first of all, the webinar recordings are at this location, the same place that you go to register, but I think there's a bit of a glitch with the website at the moment. So for this webinar, keep an eye on your emails. Is that right, Luke? And you will be notified by email when the recording becomes available. And for information on upcoming webinars, use the the dedicated Facebook page until the technical problems with this website are sorted out. Luke, is that right? Luke, our silent partner, is silent. Okay. On your screen, you should be able to see myself and Lola. Your video and microphone are off because there's over 100 people with us today, but you can use the chat box and you can use the Q&A. So any questions you have for Lola as we go along, please put them in the Q&A box, but I believe that Lola will ask you to contribute in the chat box during the presentation. And just be aware that in the chat box, there are two options in the drop down. There's send a message to everyone or send a message to just hosts and panelists. So if you want everyone to be able to read your messages, then please make sure you select that in the drop down box. And this webinar will last for no more than an hour. Okay, all right. So Lola is a teacher and a teacher trainer. She's been in education for over 20 years and a teacher trainer for 10 years. She's done a lot of things. She's managed academic programs. She creates and delivers workshops. She works as an educational consultant and she's involved in research. She works in state schools in Spain, a whole host of things. Crucially, she is also a teacher. She's a specialist in second language acquisition, in specific learning difficulties as well, and in content and language integrated learning. And today, when she talks to us about using phonology in the classroom, the key thing is that all of her materials have been tried and tested by a team of teachers over the years, and they've given feedback and things have been adjusted. So everything that she's going to show you is, well, you're in safe hands with Lola. Lola, is there anything else that you wanted to add about your bio?
No, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I can see people from everywhere, which is really, really nice to see. All of us teachers here sharing some time together. Yeah, as Lucy's saying, we are going to take a look at some activities that have been tested, first of all, with the students, then as Lucy's saying, with teachers. And every time, you know, when you start an activity, then you realize what works, what doesn't work, and then you keep trying and changing it. So we're going to take a look at that as well. I'm going to ask you some questions to participate. I really love when you guys give me feedback in the chat box. And yeah, so we'll try to take a holistic approach to this webinar.
Perfect. Okay, let's jump in.
Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so just give me a wee second. Okay, so yeah, so today we're going to take a look at phonology, right? So fun phonology for young minds. And what are we doing today? Today, we're going to take a look at a hands-on learning cycle for the development of phonological awareness. But as I said before, we're going to think about this in a holistic way. So we're going to take a holistic approach. And what does that mean? That means that if we take an activity, whether it's for phonology, grammar, vocabulary, etc., to a room of young learners, how many ever there are, we are always going to have to think about it in a holistic way. We're going to have to think about classroom management. We're going to have to think about instructions. We're going to have to think about how the staging of the activity is going to be like. Okay, so that's what I mean with a holistic approach. And then, of course, as I just said, some classroom management considerations for these activities to be applied in the classroom. So I'm going to start by asking you also to reply in the chat box. I like to hear your ideas. I like to explore your previous knowledge about these. Why is classroom management important for any type of interaction or interactive activities in the young learners class? What do you think? If you can pop your answers in the chat box, that would be great. Exactly, for focusing, right? Focusing, paying attention to the activities. Anybody else? Thank you, Carol. Speaking and listening always needs classroom management. Teacher can manage the students better. It's such a nice word to use, manage instead of control, you know, so manage the classroom, manage the behavior. Without it, there would be chaos and little could be done. Exactly, Robert. Manage learning. That's another way to call it, learning management. A nice atmosphere, opportunity to every child, which is related to inclusion, learning from each other. So that means the student learners, right? Setting boundaries, limits, exactly. So that they know what to do. Exactly. So students know what to do. Meaningful engagement, motivate and educate. Driving the class to an objective, but destination. Ensure that everybody is engaged, which is something that we struggle sometimes with as teachers. And on task, right? Yes. And the students can follow teachers' instructions are really important, especially if you have to do them 100% in English. You have to give instructions in English to students who have different levels. Clear and safe environment, a clear safety net for everyone to sort of keep them engaged, basically. Okay. Participation also really important. Without classroom management, then participation lowers. So thank you so much for your ideas. And it was also related to creativity. If they're calm and there's a calm environment with a very good system, classroom management system, then any activity, whether it's phonology, grammar, vocabulary, etc., can take place. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about two different two considerations, two concepts related to classroom management. Classroom management sometimes is invisible. So although we have our charts on the walls, on the boards, etc., classroom management is present everywhere. It's not obvious. Sometimes it's not visible. Sometimes it's not explicit. Students cannot see it. And it involves, for example, giving instructions, staging an activity, where we stand in the classroom, what we do while we monitor whenever we do these activities. So a big part of classroom management, according to our observations, because we go to the classrooms and observe teachers and work together with them, and in our classes as well, in my class, a lot of classroom management happens in an invisible way, right? And the next consideration is that communicative activities or the English language learning classroom is very learner-centered, and therefore it makes it more complex, but at the same more dynamic than the traditional classroom, right? So our English classroom is going to be noisier, it's going to be more dynamic, children are going to be moving around a lot. It doesn't matter how many there are. This is a teacher in Zaragoza that I was working with, one of our mentorees, and this is an activity that they're doing together. She has 25 children and they're all participating. So it is very different from a traditional classroom. So it's very important to take this into account when we think about doing activities like the ones we're going to take a look at today.
So Lola, it's interesting that you've started a presentation about a particular topic with classroom management. Do you think that classroom management is particularly important then in in phonology, or do you think do you start all of your presentations about any kind of teaching with classroom management?
I think it's a really good question, Lucy, and I think that whenever we're following a presentation, or when we're doing a webinar about activities for the students, like whether it's phonology, grammar, vocabulary, etc., and we're talking about younger learners or even teenagers, but now we're talking about young learners, if we visualize that activity that we are listening to or watching in our classrooms, in our context. For example, I visualize activities with my 25 third of primary children. I'm always going to have to think of how am I going to apply this activity in my classroom. And the first thing that comes to mind is classroom management, instructions, groups, etc. So because these phonological awareness activities are very dynamic, so I would say they encourage working in pairs, working in groups, etc. We're always going to think about classroom management.
Have you found, oh, sorry, it makes me wonder, have you found through your teacher training that teachers are less confident about doing things like phonology, perhaps because they feel it's more difficult to manage the class?
Yeah, I think when we talk about grammar and vocabulary, I think things are a bit more visible. They're on the board, you have a book, you have different things. But when we talk about phonology, sometimes it puts us off because it's a little bit abstract. There is some drilling, but we don't really think about any other kinds of activities that are related to phonology, that are more hands-on, and when students can work in pairs, and it can put us off, especially the classroom management aspect. If we ask our students to do a rhyme, stand up and chant together and sing, and then we do something else, it kind of puts us off because we're dealing with a large class of young learners, for example. So I think classroom management is important to take into account. And I'm talking a little bit about it, and that's it basically. We're going to go into the activities in the next slide, so that you guys think about that. And if you have any questions related to classroom management, grouping, pair work, instructions throughout the presentation, throughout the webinar, feel free to ask, because it is something that you'll have to take into account if you want to put these activities into practice tomorrow, for example. You know, so that's why we started. Does that make sense?
Very clear, yeah, very clear, very sort of reassuring, really.
Okay, so thank you. And to move on, let's look at the activity itself. Okay, so let's look at it's a game-based learning routine to develop phonological awareness, right? So first of all, we are going to base the whole routine on one rhyme. This is a very, very well-known rhyme. Two little blackbirds sitting on a hill, one named Jack, the other named Jill. Fly away Jack, fly away Jill, come back Jack, and come back Jill. And we're going to take this as an example to expand and extend and take out a lot of different little activities that are conducive to phonological awareness and pronunciation and communication as well. So what are the goals here? The goals are to learn a rhyme, and at the end create their own rhyme as well, to consolidate vocabulary related to animals, numbers, adjectives, etc., while we practice pronunciation, while we practice this rhyme, to consolidate grammar structures, adjectives, actions, etc., because we are working with a text, and within a text you find phonology, but you also find other things like grammar structures, vocabulary, etc. And to work on rhyming sounds, which is the specific phonological part of it. The students, what I'm going to show you is what I've done, what we've done with a third of primary class. And we're also going to think about adaptations, okay, for younger students and for older students. And the activity is going to consist of a jigsaw rhyme. This is the first activity. The second one is a dynamic dictation. The third one is called you snooze, you lose for pronunciation practice. And the fourth one is make a rhyme dice, which involves working with dice to create your own rhyme. So the first part of it is called Jigsaw Rhyme. And for you to see how this works, so this is basically a jigsaw with the different parts of the rhyme. I'm going to share with you a link, which is on YouTube, so you can see how it works. I'm going to put this link on the chat box, and I'm going to ask you to watch it. It's not even 8 minutes. I think it's only 5 minutes. So it's here. And I would really appreciate if you let me know if you can watch it, if it works, if you can I've tried it, it works, but if it works. So there's the link again. I'm going to copy it again. Okay. And the question is, when you watch this video, what is the activity about? Like, how does it work? Here's the link. If you can't see the link, it's fine, then I can explain it. But Lucy, can you see the link?
I'm just testing testing it. I think I've got an actually, everybody, if you stop typing in the chat, because Lola's putting it in the chat, and if you type in the chat, we'll lose it. So
what about now? Can everybody see it now?
I'll click on it. I'll just try again.
Yes, okay. Everybody can see it now, Lucy. That's fine. I had to change the visibility of it. Okay. So click on the link, watch the video. It's a very, very short video, and it's me talking about it as well, but you can see it in a better way. And the question is, what are the steps? So that's basically this activity. So as you can see in the video, we dictate the rhyme to the students. The students do the activity little by little, right? So students put the puzzle together bit by bit. And why is that important? Why is that better in our experience than playing a YouTube video and then having the students stand up and do the song or the rhyme together, and then they sort of sit down. If I do that in my class with 27, 30 children, for example, or even if it's a small class, some of them are going to be able to get it, and some of them are not going to be able. Most of them won't be able to get it because they won't be able to understand the lyrics to do it first. So that's why we do it in this way. They don't know the rhyme. That's very important to remember. So we basically dictate it to the students, and then they put it together little by little. So it's a scaffolded way of doing it. Now, this is just for the rhyme, for them to get to know the lyrics, for them to get to know the words. And why is that important? As I said, well, it's a scaffolding. It scaffolds the students' understanding of the words. It motivates them to say the rhyme. We find that sometimes we do the rhyme and then not everybody gets it, and keeps the students focused on task. Anything that has to do with them touching some kind of worksheet, flashcard, anything, it keeps them on task. And it's easier for us to see that they are doing something. Is there any particular reason for choosing this shape? No, not really. You can choose any shape. This is the shape that I like best, and it was nice for my students, but you can change the different shapes. And if your students are younger, something more obvious would work. If your students are older, maybe you can create something longer or more intricate. But that's the one that I did for my class. But yeah, no particular reason, Elena. Okay, so that would be the first step of this learning cycle. What about the number of the groups, or should it be only in pairs? I like students working in pairs, but I've also seen teachers doing it in groups of 3. So I would say 4 is too many, but pairs and groups of 3 would be great, Fatima, in this case, because then everyone is involved.
And this is such a fundamental part, that they get that initial idea of what it's about.
Exactly. And also it has a lot to do with classroom management. So when we have somebody, 4 is too many. Yeah, we have, the more students we have, the less are going to participate. So that's why I do it in pairs. Right, so 2, 3, fine. Yeah, yes, exactly. And I also give them a little puzzle. We have these in the classroom sometimes to sort of help them with challenges about that rhyme. So For example, I tell my students, complete the jigsaw puzzle from memory, do it 3 times, and then you can take 3 pieces of the puzzle and put it together. So they have that for objectives, actually. I also tell them, okay, tell the rhyme to a partner by heart twice, 2 partners or in open class, and then you can put 2 pieces together. So they have some challenges, and what they have to do is they have to put the jigsaw together, and when they finish that, the challenge is finished, right? Another one is translate 6 words of the rhyme into Spanish and then back into English. So some translanguaging, right? 6 pieces. And then write 5 words you remember from the rhyme, and you get to put 5 pieces together. So then when they finish, it's all the pieces together. They show it to me. They're like, here is the 2 bars, they're finished. And then they've met all the challenges. And that means that they do different things with the rhyme. They pronounce the rhyme in different ways. They've done it it's very scaffolded. And by this point, everybody knows how to pronounce the words correctly, but not in the drilling, like in the traditional drilling style of me saying a word and then repeating the whole time, but working together in different ways from different perspectives. And as Robert is saying in the chat, repetition, yes, it's essential, but repetition in different ways, right? Drilling in different ways.
So Lola, how does the teacher make sure that the students are pronouncing the rhyme correctly? Because otherwise they could end up reinforcing each other's errors.
Yeah, monitoring here is really important. So you can do it like this in groups, monitoring and correcting, but also because you have done the jigsaw puzzle before and they've put it together, you've pronounced it first and then they've done it. I don't know if you remember in the video, we also have a part in which we do it as a whole class. So I would say one part of the rhyme and then the whole class would say the next part, and then we take turns. But we also swap turns as well. We do it in pairs after we put the jigsaw together. And then, so there is some choral drilling of the pronunciation, but there's also some specific activities that they can do in pairs just themselves to continue practicing the pronunciation, and we are monitoring around as well.
Going around and checking.
Exactly. So there's different steps to this. So first the jigsaw, and then as you saw in the video, then choral pronunciation, practice drilling together, teacher, student, student, teacher, then student, student in pairs, taking turns to pronounce the rhyme from the jigsaw puzzle, and then doing these challenges to continue with the pronunciation practice, a little bit of understanding.
And so do you find that doing it in those kinds of stages also helps with the students' confidence? Because I think a lot of young learners, especially teenagers, can feel very self-conscious when they're doing pronunciation practice. But that sounds like if there's a lot going on in the classroom and everyone's talking at the same time, they feel less embarrassed.
Exactly, like that helps a lot. It's inclusion, it's including more students to be able to do these type of activities from different perspectives and in different ways. And especially introverted students who need scaffolding, they need steps little by little, and then they're able to produce in open class. So here we're scaffolding from the beginning, and then they're able to do it in front of everyone. And yeah, it helps more students, it gives them more confidence, and they have many opportunities to manipulate the language as well. So that's that really helps everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on. And as you have all said, how can you adapt this? So for me, instead of doing a rhyme, maybe you're not going to teach a rhyme, maybe you're going to teach a something else, right? What else can you use this activity for? So instead of doing a rhyme, for example, I would do it to revise numbers because my students are in first of primary and cannot read yet. So with numbers, for example, what else can you do it with? Just a couple of ideas in the chat box before we move on. Colors, yes, exactly, matching colors. Reading for phonology, minimal pairs, for example, as well. Shape, speeches, tongue twisters. We've used tongue twisters quite a lot for older students. The weather, etc. Any topics really, right? Phonics, yes, for sure, phonics. CVC words, alliteration, etc. Okay. Thanks, everyone. The idea is how we do it, right? In stages. So for example, I've used it for other songs, like just with pictures, head, shoulders, knees and toes, right? So this is another version for younger students, just with pictures for a song, for example. Tongue twisters, as you've said, different subjects and numbers, minimal pairs, opposites, synonyms, past, present, etc. Building a song. We use songs, rhymes, and chants for pronunciation. Okay. Okay. What about the next stage, part 2? Part 2 is a back-to-back dictation. Okay. So here we're not going to watch this video. I'm going to send you the link. You'll have this material available later. But I'm going to just tell you how it works. Okay. Is there a website where you can find jigsaw templates? I'm so sorry, Maria. No, I've made them myself. But once you have a template, you can adapt it to other words, activities, etc. Okay. So what's the next step? So students are going to continue with the same rhyme, but with a different version. So we're going to work in pairs again, and we are going to divide the class into students C and students D. So they have the same text, but they're missing different words, right? So two big red birds, etc. So I'm gonna ask Lucy. Lucy, can we do it together? Can we do this part together? Okay, so they're supposed to dictate the words to each other and write and complete the text. So I'm not supposed to see Lucy's worksheet, and she's not supposed to see mine. So we're just going to dictate it. So what I do here is I have my students sit back to back. That's why it's called back-to-back dictation. Okay, so I've got my pen, my imaginary pen, and I'm going to start. Lucy, are you ready? Okay, so two, and Lucy writes two. Continue.
Big red
Birds
dancing
on a wall.
One named Peter,
The other named Paul.
fly away.
Peter, fly away.
Paul, come back.
Peter, come back.
Paul.
Okay, so when we finish, we've just finished the rhyme. We finished completing everything. The next step would be so the students are working here back to back. The next step would be to correct if we've done it well, if we've done it correctly. So we look at each other, we look at our texts, and we correct if there are any mistakes. We compare our rhymes, etc. So how can we adapt it? I'm going to show you how it works, okay, with a class with a different topic. And so these students are in third of primary, and the text is not about the rhyme, okay, but it is about a different text. It's a text for science. So this is the reality of the classroom. This is how this activity works. And while you watch the video, think about why is this type of interaction, why does this type of interaction help students' pronunciation? Or how does this type of activity help students' pronunciation? Okay, so that's the question while you watch. Okay, so as you can observe, there is some pronunciation problems and the teacher is monitoring, correcting pronunciation. By this point, this is a different text, but when we talk about the rhyme that we're talking about, then there's a lot of words that they know how to pronounce. They've worked on it already, and they're just doing, replacing some of the words. And some of you are saying very interesting things like action-oriented approach. Yes, the students are doing something. They are using the language in a very controlled way, but they are doing something. Skill integration, there's listening, there's writing, turn-taking skills, classroom management. They can write the words by speaking them loudly. Yes, they try to read correctly. Together, climbers write the right words. They correct each other's pronunciation a lot of the time as well. Peer feedback, correction, and they get used to being corrected too. That's something that socially and psychologically, they get used to that, and they get used to feedback. Good skill to learn, selective listening. It adds a sense of urgency for both students, a healthy amount of pressure, but they are not too pressured either, exactly. Collaboration within the students, peer learning, etc. And they are practicing the, thank you, and they're practicing the text. So the same happens with the birds, with this text. Students compare their answer when they finish.
You know, Lola, I just watching that video just reminded me of doing that activity with my students, and it's just so much fun. Like, it sounds like chaos, but it's controlled chaos, and it's just nice to be able to kind of let loose and do something like that. I love it. I love that kind of thing.
They get really into it. They really like it, and they correct each other's mistakes, and they also spell. So they work on spelling. You can see that the negotiation is in their first language because we negotiate in our first language, you know, but the actual activity, the activity itself is done in English. And sometimes it's the first time that they manage to speak to each other in English, because it is controlled. They're not talking about their lives, but they are actually talking to each other in a foreign language, and it gives them that feeling of confidence as well to then produce something else. Yes, high level of agency, so student agency is triggered there, you know. It makes them more interested. So they are working with a rhyme as well, but they're not just chanting the rhyme, they're working in a different way. So let's move on. I've heard a lot of your ideas of also adaptations there too. Yes, nobody gets frustrated. Yeah. Some adaptations here I'd like to show you are, for example, at a word level. This is something that I've done with my 5-year-olds before, with instead of filling in the blanks with some words, they fill in the blanks with some pictures. So my house is blue, for example. This is for phonology. So this is at for CBC words. So we've done it with the 5-year-olds as well. And so we do it in open class. So we would go at cat, and then they read the word and draw the picture. For spelling too. So BALL, ball, and then they draw it. Yes, it's phonics, exactly, synthetic phonics. Also for spelling really long, difficult words that they have to discover when they finish the interaction. So for example, if Lucy and I are working together and we have this word here, we dictate the letters to each other and we find what word it is. We can work with our dictionaries, find the definition, and draw a picture, for example. So it's a very little activity, little exercise, but it encourages communication in a very scaffolded way. Okay, so those are some adaptations for that activity. Any questions so far? Hope I'm not going too fast. Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, we do it with CBC and other types of spelling. Thank you, Sarah. Okay.
And Lola, just the time check. We've got 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. This is for older students, for example, at a paragraph level, right? Another type of adaptation. So we're also going to go back to our jigsaw puzzle here, and I'm going to ask my students to compare and contrast the two rhymes, right, to find differences. This is something that I like to ask my students to do to raise awareness of differences in vocabulary, in pronunciation, etc. So circle all the differences that they can find, and then they tell me how many differences they found. In this case, is 10. So Peter, Paul, etc. A little bit of comparing and contrasting. You can also have a quick comprehension challenge, like how many birds are there in total? What color are the birds? What are their names? Where are they sitting or dancing, etc. So that would be a follow-up activity to those two. So Fatima is saying some of my students do not have much of patience during the back-to-back dictation. And if they mispronounce a word even twice, their patience will get thinner immediately. What kind of a word? What a word do you suggest to encourage those students? So yeah, Fatima, for me, what I sometimes have done, not for the same reason, but when they dictate the words to each other, every time they finish a word, they get points, but they also get points for asking how to spell a word and how to pronounce a word. So it's not just about finishing, it's also about doing it right. So if they do it right, if everything is correct, and when they compare everything is correct, then that takes more value than finishing it quickly, because it's not really a competition. So I find that the impatient students who really want to finish quickly, make sure that they partner does it correctly by spelling or by helping their partner, so that it's quality versus, I don't know, quantity or finishing it before. So I make sure that they understand that to get the points, so that they practice on other skills like spelling. But I do understand what you're saying.
That's a lovely idea. So you introduce the element of competition, but where they're trying to really do something well. That's great.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to finish quickly, but to finish it well. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter. Like the less mistakes you have because you've helped each other, the more points you'll get. So it's a little bit of a way, but obviously there's always one thing I want to finish quickly. Right. Okay. So let's see. The next step is to segment the rhyme, right? So we're going to work on segmentation. So two little black birds sitting on a hill. I've segmented the rhyme in this way. One named Jack, the other named Jill. Fly away, Jack. Fly away, Jill. Come back, Jack. Come back, Jill. Okay, so that's the first step. And then I tell my students that there is a card, there is a flashcard per segment, because we are going to play a game called You Snooze, You Lose, or Snap Rhyme. So I show my students the segments and I say to them, okay, is there a segment for two? Yes. Is there a segment for black? Yes. Segment for sitting? Segment for all of them in the flashcards. And what are we going to do? We have these flashcards prepared. I print out several sets, shuffle them, put them in a bag. More or less about 7 per pair, okay? And now that the students have practiced the segmented rhyme, they're familiar with the pronunciation, there's connected speech on a hill, for example, they have reached zero uncertainty of the meaning, they know what it means because we've done comprehension, we've done comparing and contrasting, we've done back-to-back dictation of the other part of the rhyme, they know a lot about that, they're able to play this game, okay? So of course, if we give instructions, we're going to ask concept check questions, vocabulary questions, etc. And here are the flashcards. So they have, yes, you can get the materials, Shanti. So we're going to play a game with all these flashcards, and I'm going to show you how we play this game. So this game is called You Snooze, You Lose, or Snap Game, with all the flashcards that I've showed you. And
2. Little. Black. Birds. Sitting. On a hill. One name. Jack. The other name. Jill. Oh. 2. Little. Black. Birds. Sitting. On a hill. One name. Jack. The other name. Jill. Fly away. Jack. Fly away. Jill. Come back. Jack. Come back. Jill. Okay, so we start again.
Okay, so how does...
2.
I'm just going to repeat it one more time.
Birds. Sitting. On a hill. One name. Jack. The other name. Jill.
Okay, so when one of the students says Jill, and if it's Jill, they put their hand on it, and then they give the card to the person who loses. So this is you snooze, you lose. And this is something we've played with the different parts of the rhyme in order to practice the pronunciation and to understand. And to understand the words a little bit better. There is, in the flashcards, you have pictures and words, etc. So my question here is, the cards don't match. Okay, so let me repeat it here. Let me watch it again.
2. Little. Black. Birds. Sitting. On a hill. One name. Jack. The other name. Jill.
These cards are different. The other ones are, these ones are not as nice as the other ones, but they're the same cards, Robert. Okay, they're the same cards. So when it's Jill and you say Jill, you put your hand there. A snap game, yes. So yes, so it's really motivating, but I'd like to ask you, and I'd like to hear your ideas. Why is this activity, how is this activity helping students? What kind of skills do you practice when you do this kind of activity? Memorization, exactly. They memorize the word, build the sense of the rhyme, the meaning of the rhyme. Anything else? Some of them talk about collaboration, creative thinking, recognizing the words. Confidence in speaking, yes, it builds up confidence, and they also have to work together. They continue practicing pronunciation. It's exciting, they enjoy it. It's competitive, but in a nice way, because we have different turns, right? So sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. So we take turns and we get used to the idea. You can also just put the pictures and see if they remember the words, or just the words to see if they can read them out loud. It's group work as well, exactly. Motivation, etc. Yeah, so this is the game, you snooze, you lose, and they really enjoy. So the cards don't have to match the speaking. The cards have to match the speaking, yeah, as you see. So you say 2 little black birds sitting on a hill. If it matches, you put your hand on it, Carol, and then you can either give it to your partner or take it yourself. Okay. Well, you can watch the video again later if you want to see the next steps, because we're going to share this with you. But yeah, it is another way to practice the rhyme, practice the pronunciation of it, and continue playing with the same sort of words. Yes, I will share.
I was just going to say that at the end of that, we may have a few little questions at the end. I'm sure you'll share information, so we'll have a little bit of time for final questions. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So the last step now, you have the instructions because we've looked at it, and you can do some adaptations for other levels like tongue twisters, songs, different subjects, animals, any kind of sequence works with this. In this case, our sequence was the rhyme. Okay. So last part is make a rhyme nice. Now that they've done all of these activities, they can create their own rhyme, and that's very, very simple. So we have 6 different dice here. And one of them is numbers because it's too little. So we have adjectives. Then we've got black colors, 2 little black birds, right? We have different animals here. We have parrots, elephants, etc. Then we have a verb, sitting, dancing, jumping. And then we have a place, which is on a hill, on the ground, on a chair, etc. And the only thing the students are going to do is they're going to roll the dice and create their own. So for example, they roll the first one, okay, and the answer is 4, so they write 4. Then the next part is the adjective, so you have little, tall, big, short, etc. They roll the second one and they have little. Then colors, we have another one for colors, and the answer is blue, so they write blue, so 4 little blue. And then animals, instead of birds, they roll and it lands on monkeys, so 4 little blue monkeys. Then we look at the next dice, which is about actions. Roll of it, and then it says sleeping. So 4 little blue monkeys are sleeping. We roll it, and it's on a chair. Sorry, on a bed. One named Pepe, they can invent the first name, they can create it, and then the other one is like another one named Ted. So this name has to match. So I usually give them some names in English because they don't know them, to create their first little chant. And then because they have different variations, different groups or different pairs, it depends on how you want your students to do this. They can roll the dice, arrange the lines exactly, yes, Fatma, and create their own rhyme. So they start from 2 little blackbirds sitting on a hill, one named Jack, the other named Jill, 2, 4 little blue monkeys sleeping on a bed, one named Pepe, another one named, or the other one named Ted. And they're able to do that with their dice. So they're able to create a new rhyme themselves. Of course, it's a very, very controlled activity. Another way to do it would be for them to write the different parts of the dice. But yeah, I think that's the end of it. You can also think about different ways to do a follow-up activity with this.
You know, Lola, I think this is a really particularly interesting activity because I think it works very well with English as a stress-timed language, that they can see if they can keep that same rhythm, but with different words and different numbers of syllables in it. So it's developing quite a few skills, isn't it? I think these activities that you're showing, they're quite simple in concept, but they really do stretch the students' minds quite a lot.
Exactly. And I mean, for follow-up of these, you can also give them some other verbs. And then instead of saying fly back, remember another name. So 2 little blackbirds sitting on a hill, one named Jack, the other named Jill. Fly away, Jack. Instead of fly away, they can choose a different verb. So hop away, Pepe, hop away, Ted. Run back, Pepe, run back, Ted. And then you'll have a lot of different variations of the same rhyme in different groups. And you can do many activities with them later, as you say, find the stress, intonation, work on more language, mime the rhymes in front of everybody, guess what the rhyme is, skip, for example.
So this, yeah, and it's very physical, but it's great because it helps them to learn a lot more language, but alongside the pronunciation, because it's just automatic. They're already trying to say this rhyme, so they're already saying, they're not learning the words in isolation, they're learning them in a context, and they are growing a whole range of things that they can say. So you've taken one simple rhyme, but they're not just learning to say that rhyme because it's not that useful as a rhyme when they go to an English speaking country. But with all of this, they can communicate quite a lot.
Exactly. And they also have a sample, and the creativity is kind of triggered. Like they can do many things with one specific little rhyme, but in a very scaffolded way. And it's very interesting what some of you are saying, that you can act out the rhymes and the music of the language is important. So the rhymes really work. This rhyme really works for that, and all the rhymes will work for that as well if we give them the right scaffolding. So
a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, to the person who's asking in the chat, these webinars are recorded. You will be able to watch it in full again. Don't worry. Okay, Lola. Oh, is that, have we reached the end?
I think we have reached the end now, because I don't want to take more time, but I think this is a first sample of some activities that you can do in class, the ways you can adapt them, ways you can adapt them to the different levels of the students. And also the main idea here is that if we're thinking phonology, we can also do a whole range of things and think about it in a very holistic way. Think about classroom management, different types of interactions, different stages, and starting from something very small to basically try to extend it and expand it as much as possible, and try to have the students be the main characters of it and do a lot of things hands-on, as you're all saying.
Really involved in every stage in quite a few ways. And so in terms of teacher preparation, if they make themselves a little template like what you've got, they can do all kinds of things with it. And I'm sure DICE templates are readily available online. And then everything else just sort of comes from that. So you can use those same templates for all kinds of different things and for all the extension activities as well. So the teacher can cover a lot with not too much prep.
Exactly.
Always great.
Yeah, and sometimes I have my students help me with the prep. So they make the dice, they make their own drawings, they cut out things and cut out the jigsaw puzzles, so I'm not having to cut out like 20 different things. But you know, I think we're all young learners, teachers, and we know that we walk about with scissors everywhere, you know, so all the time. So I don't know if there are any questions in the Q&A or before we finish.
I think there was just a question about getting a template, but I think you've already said that you made that initial template yourself, but it's a simple design, isn't it? Yes, let's see if there's anything else coming up in the chat. There's a question here about any websites you think are good for reading up on ideas on classroom management.
There are a lot of websites on classroom management. Off the top of my head, there was one that I stopped using because I think the creators were not doing a great job, but it was a Sparkle Box, and it was good in the past, but I stopped using it. I don't know if it exists anymore. But I'll make sure I put a few on in the materials. You can find a lot of classroom management materials on Eduki. That's a website that has a lot of materials for English. So you can find that and you can download materials from there to help you with your classroom management.
So Lola's just put that in the chat there, eduki.com. So what happens is that all of these webinars are recorded, and usually they are available to watch again on the Trinity website, on the same website that you go to register. But as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a bit of a problem with the website at the moment, but it's being fixed. So it will be fixed soon. But in the meantime, keep an eye on your emails and you will get a notification of when the recordings are available to watch again. And there won't be the slides available separately, but you will be able to see these slides within the recording. And if there's any particular materials that Lola has that she wants to share, we will put those up on the site alongside the video. Lola, yeah, I think could you stop sharing a moment? Thank you very much. Sorry, that was the wrong order. Thank you very much. I just want to share one final slide before everybody disappears. So this is just about the webinars next year. So this is the last one of the year, and next year we are back. The first webinar of the year is with Rachel Una, and she's going to be talking about using authentic materials for reading at all different kinds of levels. So follow us on the Facebook page link that's at the bottom there, and keep an eye on the website. It will be fixed soon. So that's everything. Lola, thank you so much. I found that really a lot of fun. That was my main thing. It was fun, and I could just see how the students' brains would be getting stretched in all different directions with all these deceptively simple activities. So I think there's a lot that teachers can go away and use in their classroom. And as we said, these are tried and tested, so they can have confidence.
Thank you so much, Lucy. And thanks everyone for the comments and the feedback. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find it useful and you can maybe use some ideas in your classrooms.